have to be anywhere. Call us in 72 hours. 80% of the time, that's absolutely right. But there's sometimes, I had a case last year with a family, and once you looked into it, you saw this guy was a creature of habit. For him not to be there, it was just wrong. There's something that we all do is habit. And when people close to us notice that broken, it sets off an alarm. It may be contacting your being home every night to walk your dog, calling somebody every evening to check in or something. You know, we had a mother that was missing on her child's first day of school. You know, all these things sets off flags, and the police need to have a way where they accelerate it, because some cases, I think, are getting a little too ahead of them because of not pushing things. And we talked before the show about the Just Wrestling match with bank records and stuff like that in the midst of this. And everybody who does this, there is no kit. They're inventing it the first time under the most amount of stress they could have. And there's no prep for this at all. And you had to stop automatic payments. You know, you talked about, you know, the simplest of things, stopping automatic payments on a car's insurance that nobody has any idea where it is.
Right.
You know, and draining a bank account, and people don't think about it. It goes down to the simplest thing like that. And in the meantime, you're worried about your granddaughter.
Right.
And your daughter.
Right. Exactly.
And what you're going to do about all those things.
Picking up insurance for the granddaughter because the daughter's no longer employed because she's not showing up for work because she's missing.
Right.
Things you just take for granted until it's like, oh my God, there's a rude awakening.
You know, and it's I didn't understand it at the time, but my mother, my brother died before my mother. My mother, it changed her. And then my mother died before my grandmother, and it changed her. And my grandmother said, you know, I forget how it came up. My grandmother said, maybe it was her, I think it was her at the funeral just standing there, and she was kind of talking a little bit, mumbling out loud, and she said, you're not supposed to bury your children. Correct. And that just stuck with me.
I've heard that term, and that is so true. So true. It
seems to have so much more weight, and I know I just kind of went through this with my nephew, and it's different. It's different when someone's younger than you. Right. On many levels. Because we had never ever spoke of it. We had never had a discussion of it, me and him. But he was supposed to take care of me. Right. Yeah, I mean, he was supposed to take care of me, and being the slacker that he was, he couldn't even finish that. So he didn't do that either. But that's what I always thought. I just assumed it. We assume people will be here for a long time. For a long time. And it gets shorter. It gets shorter. And there needs to be something where 2-3 adults can get some emergency court order to just take control of your life for whatever reason. Just like when we do something where somebody gets mentally committed, you know, or something.
Even that's very difficult. Yeah. Very difficult to have that done.
It's not as, it should be more of a, I don't think they fully grasp that the people that are going through this process are going through it in the middle of chaos, and they're overwhelmed, and they're having to learn about, you know, there's nothing, the last thing anybody wants to do in the middle of a crisis is learn about the law. Right.
And you're learning very quickly.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly.
And you're learning from people who really don't have a lot of patience for your questions. Right. And you have lots of questions.
Right. And they kind of push you off to the side.
And there just needs to be some kind of a service that doesn't push you off and makes you more of an active partner in going through the process of looking. And when we work with the family, and I'll be quite honest, I don't like working with the family because the family is emotional. We are passionate. That's different, though. Right. That's different. And I'll never hold it against a family what they do, because I would do any number of things. I would have psychics riding in on segways and be repositioning satellites. I would do anything.
Right. You don't know what you're capable of doing or asking for.
Right.
Those times.
And it's really tough to tell the family, and I've seen it on multiple occasions, don't give that person any money. It's not going to help you at all.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that, thankfully, I think in your case didn't go. You guys didn't do the whole second mortgage of the house thing and all that.
No, because we figured if somebody's going to come clean no matter what, money's not always a factor. And if you look around and you see the other cases that are missing, you see rewards of $50,000, $500,000, and they still have no more answers than they did from day one.
The money just doesn't prove to be a reliable factor. And then the other thing that is kind of same is when you have large searches, when you have these crowds, you hear massive crowds, helicopters, usually the person, and this is something that happens more a little below us south, large searches, mass crowds, and then you'll see that somebody's found a month later in a farmer's field.
Right.
By one single person or somebody walking their dog or something like that.
Or hunting.
Yeah. Dog walkers and hunters a lot of the time. And you wonder the effort, why wasn't it directed better? And it's just tough. This case, and I'm sorry to refer to it as a case because it's more than that to you, but it's just frustrated me because I've had to stay back and watch it because I have nothing to offer because there's no place to start.
Right.
But I can feel the pain. Like I was watching very closely to see if you guys were giving money to anybody.
Well, I had to raise my granddaughter, so I didn't have that money.
Right. But that's when I was going to appear out of sulfur and just block you. That was going to make me break the rules and don't interfere.
Right.
Because I see that. And once you give a nickel out, it's like blood in the water for sharks.
Right. They come out of the woodwork.
They come out of woodworks. And I'm not saying it doesn't work sometimes, but I can't think of a time when I've seen it work. I think that the people that are going to help have either decided not to help because they're horrible people, or they don't realize that they can help.
Right.
That's the two categories I have. And I'm hopeful in this that somebody is out there and thinking, maybe I saw that car. Maybe I saw that girl. I mean, you just have to Google the name. It's all over the internet. It still is. And if you saw something and you saw something that's reliable, then that's helpful. If you think you saw something and you're bending it in your helpful mind to make it reliable, that doesn't help, and we just need something that you're more than 60% sure of, that matches up with the timeline. And sightings were in, correct me if I'm wrong, Philadelphia, Camden, and Lancaster.
Correct.
And Lancaster is where she worked.
Yes.
And I'm just going on past cases. I think a lot of times people, after someone goes missing, remember seeing that person in an area, but they're getting the dates wrong. They're juxtaposing dates.
Yes.
And I think that those Lancaster people might have been used to seeing her work, stopping off to get something, get a coffee or whatever.
Right. Gas,
and they just
cigarettes, whatever.
And put the dates after the fact. That happens a lot. The Camden thing has some significance because an unbiased machine picked up the license plate.
Right.
And if that machine was working properly and not messing up something, then that at least shows that something connected to this was there at that time.
Right.
Not necessarily the car, but if someone is missing, their license plate appears somewhere, then that indicates there's a problem. And I don't know what is the story behind the Philadelphia ones.
I'm not sure. I thought that was pretty much the same thing as a person spotting the license plate number.
Okay.
Not a machine.
Okay. Because I had never heard anything about those, and there was the anonymous letter that came in that had the details in it, which that is still a mystery because the details are pretty extensive.
Right.
And it's nothing. What always bothers me about these letters and these helpful tips, and I remember we had years ago there was a psychic, and I had this big thing about meeting with them about a case, and my assistant chief asked me to please take it seriously, and I lasted for maybe 2 minutes. It wasn't I didn't take it seriously. He said, "Do you have any questions?" I'm like, "Yes, where are they?" But that's my question. Right. That's the only question I need you to answer. We can figure out everything else from that. And they didn't want to do that. They wanted to talk about clouds and trees. I see clouds and I see trees. And I said, you know what? Turn this into something and talk to me later. And that's what a lot of it seems to be. And I think there are people out there that are sensitive to things, and I think they can pick up. I think sometimes their interpretation of it is a little weak for what people investigating an incident need, and I think that they need to quantify it and come with a little bit, be a little bit more specific about things, and maybe not when they have that first dream come to someone, but when they're on the third dream or something. And do you think, we talked about different theories, and I don't want to go into theories because none of them are good ones, and they're theories.
And there's theories.
We both have theories, and we both agree on one theory,
right?
The top theory. And I should have said at the beginning of this, as with most things, I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong all the time, every day, because if I'm wrong, the world's better, you know. There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing a family member run over to somebody at the resolution of something with a positive resolution and start hitting their loved one, you know, and because everybody thinks that it's like on TV where it's hugs and it's kisses, and it's really, it goes from like a pseudo punch hug, I call it, to just like, oh, now they're just beating them up. Right. They're just beating them up. But I wish that could happen all the time. The thing that makes this unique, like we talked about, is the car missing also. Right. And the only two reasons I've ever seen for cars to be missing is something sinister is being covered up, or water. Somebody drove into the water. Or was put in the water. I can't think of another reason. Is there anything that you would like to say to people who might, people who have questions about what you're going through? Or that's a tough question. Yeah. Because you can't imagine it until you literally go through it. I mean, I've heard of people missing since I was a child. And you just kind of look, and I always looked at pictures of children missing and thought, well, I'll keep my eye out. But even that fades when you're around so many people. But pictures, cell phone pictures surely help. But you, like I said, you can't imagine going through it. It's like a void. It's a big hole, like you're falling in it, and you can never touch any sides or reach the bottom. That's a good way to describe it, because you're just stuck in limbo. Yeah, I mean, exactly. You don't, like I said, I've seen it take 6 or 7 years from the point where there is closure and a determination for the process to start. Right. You know? And it's getting that closure. Yeah, it's getting there, and I've seen, you know, I've seen the weight it's taken. And the other thing we talked about was it can destroy families. It can unite them. Fortunately, it's united your family. Correct. Yeah. I've seen people that I look at and I know they're going to get divorced. I know they're going to get divorced. It may be 6 months, it may be a year, but I know it's happening. I've seen that too. So that's why I said that's where I saw either it pulls you together or pulls you apart. Yeah. Are there any other side? Because this is the difference with search and rescue. Like I was talking about fire, police, and everything, is that you have a starting point. Search it's a true mystery, because This is at the point where clearly something has happened.